coming to you from North Atlanta Studios and brought to you by Mesmerize Media. It's the Advantage of Adversity podcast. And now, here's your host, Glenn Carver.
Hello, everybody. It's Glenn Carver. Good afternoon. I'm your host for the Advantage of Adversity podcast, coming to you from the North Atlanta Studios and Mesmerize Media. And boy, we have a phenomenal guest today for you. You better put your seatbelts on for this story. As you know, the mission of this podcast is to highlight stories of amazing people who have been through significant adversity in their personal or professional lives. And despite that adversity, they've made the decision, they've made the choice to move through the adversity and somehow find the opportunity, maybe even the advantage and the blessing in the adversity. So today, my guest is Fran Ferguson. Unlike many of my guests that I've known for many years and for a majority of my life, Fran and I have never met. This is our first conversation today. We met through a mutual friend named Fran Hughes, and Fran Ferguson is coming in from Massachusetts today. But as a parent, I can't even begin to fathom what she's been through and the story that she's going to tell us today. But in 1984, Fran's daughter was murdered by a serial killer. I just can't even fathom how you start to process that, how you deal with that, how you heal from that emotionally. Maybe you never do. And it's hard for me to imagine finding the blessing in it, but hey, that's what this show is all about. And we're going to dig in. We're going to jump into it. So welcome to the Advantage of Adversity, Fran Ferguson. Hello, Fran.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And in spite of a little technical adversity up front, we have you. We have you on the show.
Finally made it.
Well, I'm so glad that you're a guest, and I look forward to learning more about you and your story. And I know it's going to blow some people away and inspire some people. But to set you up a little bit, I've got my cheat sheet here. So following your daughter's murder, which I just can't even believe that's coming off my tongue, in 1984, you advocated for those grieving and recovering from loss. You've been a guest speaker on numerous radio shows across the country. And I love this. You write a column for your local newspaper entitled After the Cards and Flowers. What a wonderful title. And you've spoken on your local television network. And this really has my attention. You have taught or still teach life after death classes at Falmouth Night School, which really intrigues me because I'll have to admit, Fran, I've watched my fair share of near-death experience videos on YouTube, and that whole subject fascinates me. But why don't we just dive right in? Tell me a little about you and your family and where you're from, and then we'll get into the core of the message and the story today.
Of course, mom and dad are gone, and so I have no. Right now, physically in my life now, I'm teaching spiritual classes to those interested in life after death and those that have gone through a loss, because a loss is a loss, whether it's your child, your mother, a close friend,
Sure.
even the family animal. But
Absolutely.
it hurts.
Yes.
It hurts. So I don't know where to go from here. The story is it. My story starts out with a tragedy, but ends up absolutely a beautiful gift.
Well, that's amazing to hear. So let's dig in. Let's talk about that. Give us some details of what happened to your daughter in 1984. First of all, what was her name?
Terry.
Terry.
Teresa Ferguson. And the man who murdered her, actually, I think there was a woman he captured in Georgia, and somehow or other she escaped. But there was one victim that escaped. But Terry was 21 and she went shopping, and she never came home.
Oh,
And we, all parents, you be home by a certain time, and
sure.
your kid, them. And when she didn't come home, I didn't sleep all night. Of course, kept looking out the window for her car, looking in her room. Um, and by the next day, and my husband at the time was a police captain. And what was crazy is you can't report them missing until like 24 or 48 hours, which is like saying you don't know your own child.
Right.
You know.
Right. Right.
So it was a huge manhunt across the United States to catch this man. And they finally did, actually. April 13th in Colebrook, New Hampshire, he was trying to escape into Canada. But Terry's death opened up a completely whole new reality, a whole new life to me. To begin with, Glenn, I have a huge belief in God.
Yes.
Huge. It
Cool.
just
That
overshadows.
makes two of us, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, that's my go-to everything. I
Sure.
don't care what religion you are, what nationality you are, what you call this being, it's there for all of us. It's love, it's there.
Yes.
So I found through her death, I found a deeper appreciation of this God. Because Terry immediately proved to me that she survived death. And I think that's why I am where I am.
Well, let's talk about that. How did Terry do that? Did she speak to you from the afterlife? I know you have a spiritual teacher, Master Rose Ashley. How did Terry communicate to you and let you know that everything was okay in the afterlife?
Well, kind of imagine yourself with no body and you want to get in touch with someone. How do you do it? And well, she started doing funny things around the house.
Hmm.
And because she was funny when, in life
Okay.
was
Okay.
funny, we laughed so much together.
I would
But
have liked her.
yeah, yeah. So and and Glenn, I wasn't expecting anything. I wasn't expecting any kind of anything. But in the middle of crying or something, all of a sudden in Florida, we have overhead fans in all of our rooms.
Sure.
And all of a sudden the fan would go whoop, whoop, whoop around. And I say, oh, wait a minute, the fan's not on. And I have a sense of happiness inside of me.
Hmm.
And then it was just that was just the beginning. She let me know with so many things. My husband went off to work one morning. Was it probably a month after she was killed? And he had two pieces of bacon. I remember, and it was on a piece of what do you call it, paper on the counter. And I was cleaning the house, and I went back into the kitchen from the bedroom, and the paper and the bacon was on the kitchen floor. And it was just little things she would do, but there's a sense of another being, and there's a sense, and it's a happy thing. You feel this joy, this bubbly joy inside of you around your heart. So
You felt that physically.
yeah, I feel that physically.
Wow.
And then another thing, Terry used to love to dance.
Okay.
And she and her girlfriend, before one dance, went out to a thrift shop, and she found a dress to wear, and she was showing it to me. She said, "Oh, Mom, look at this. This is an old-fashioned dress. It's from the 50s." I said, "Oh, great." So anyway, she wore it, and they went out dancing, and that was that. But after she was killed, the same girl 3 months later called me up, and she says, "Mrs. Ferguson, Mrs. Ferguson." I said, "What's the matter, honey?" She said, "I saw Terry last night." I said, "What do you mean you saw her?" She said, "I was at the place where we usually go to dance, and I felt like someone was looking at me." And she said, "I looked across the floor, and there was Terry, and she was in the same dress that we had bought together at the thrift store." And then all of a sudden she disappeared.
Wow. So she saw like an apparition
She
of
saw,
Terry?
she saw, yeah, Terry materialized.
Wow.
And, and then I had another detective who was my husband's police partner. he was out fishing in Arkansas, and Terry and this police officer were very close. And he was fishing, and he felt like someone was watching him, and he looked up on a ledge, and there was Terry. He said, she smiled at me and disappeared.
Unbelievable.
So, and this doesn't happen to everybody,
Sure.
but a lot of the messages that she sent me, um, they happen to everybody, but they're not tuned in. You got to tune in.
You gotta tune in. So how do
You
you how do you tune in? What would you how would you recommend other people tune in?
um, other than listening to your feelings, open yourself up because, um, and I don't want to make this a big religious thing, but open your heart and mind to a God that would really rock your socks because there is so much more. God has given us so much more than the few little things we use, these piddling little things.
Sure.
We have abilities, we have a power that He gave us. And the greatest one, of course, is love.
Do you continue to get
Uh,
messages or signals or do you that lovely feeling from Terry? Do you
oh,
think
yeah.
this is gonna last forever? Hopefully it
Yeah.
will.
And another way that if you've lost someone you love, um, remember they can't come down and sit and talk and like you and I are talking. They have to find another way to get to you and reach you and their way of reaching you is to say, "Hey, I love you. I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm whole. I'm not sick. I'm happy, happy, happy." The way they do it though is think about when you jump in your car in the morning and you turn on your car radio and the song reminds you of that person. There's a
Sure.
message in it. And that's how that's one of the ways they get in touch. And Terry has done that very, very often. Sometimes when I'm very, very, and have I ever heard her voice kind of aloud, like right now, like we're speaking? Um, yes, yes, I have. Once when I was crying, I was like, off the wall, crying, crying, crying. And all of a sudden, I heard her voice. She says, "Mom, get over it." It was like, and she's like, "Cut it out. You just cut it out, Mom. Cut it out." Um, this that's why I wrote the book that I wrote because it has everything in it. A lot of the things in it, but I wonder how many things I missed. I wonder how much everybody misses
Sure.
when they lose somebody they love desperately. Um, you have to be a little bit more aware. You have to be aware. That's all. You just have to be aware. I just had something, Glenn, 2 days ago from Terry. It's been almost 40 years.
Yeah.
But I was cleaning out the basement and I was going through some of the paintings that I've done over the years. And one of them was, and it was mentioned in the book, that we all have knowings. We have an intelligence, a knowing that goes beyond what we think. Uh, when Terry was 19 or 20 and she was murdered when she was 21, she used to tell me, "Mom," I remember I was 45 at the time. She says, "Mom, I'm never going to be as old as you." And I
Hmm.
said, "What do you mean? Of course you are, honey."
That's really interesting to me because I've experienced that from a friend. So tell us about that.
Mhm. And I said, "Of course you are." She said, "No, Mom, I'm not." And it wasn't like, oh, a doom and gloom. It was like, no, no. It's like, no, I'm just not going to. No, I'm not going to.
Very matter of fact.
Very matter of fact. And it was with it to her boyfriend, the fellow she was going to marry. In the past several months, I've spoken to him and he said, every once in a while, she would just say to him, "Dan, you know, I'm never going to grow old." And he'd say, "Terry, of course you are." She said, "No, Dan, I'm not."
Wow.
And so this one night when we were living in Florida at the time, oh, that's where she was killed. She says, "Mom, can I get into your wedding gown?" I said, "Oh, honey, it's up in the attic." She's, "Oh, mom, mom,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right."
Yeah.
So I climbed up in the attic, got the wedding gown down, and she got into it. Perfect fit. Well, she was beautiful. She says, "Oh, can I go show our next door neighbors?" I said, "Sure." So she trounced out of the house with a gown, and on her way back, she was standing under a palm tree, and it was a moonlit night, and I looked at her. I says, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful." But we don't have the phones to take pictures, and I didn't even think of it at the time, but I had it in my mind, and I painted it. Probably maybe 10 years after she was killed, and cleaning out the paintings down in the basement, I looked at it and I said, "You know what? I gotta touch that up. That doesn't quite look enough like her. I want to put some finishing touches on it." And so right now, actually, it's in my room here. And uh, and then within the same time frame, Glenn, Dan, her boyfriend from years ago, said he has just got to come up and see me. We've got to do another hug or something. So he's coming up next month. But I took a picture of the picture that I'm painting. Okay, you have a photograph of the painting.
Sure.
And I went out to the backyard. My husband was sitting out in the backyard, and I said to him, "Here's a picture, the painting I'm going to redo." And I said, "Honey, do you realize how emotional it's going to be when Dan comes up and he and I are together?" And I said, "And I know in my heart that if Dan and I are together, Terry's going to be there."
Yeah.
And at that precise moment, I looked at my phone, and there was a white light around her body
Wow.
on the camera. I looked at it, and my first thought was, "Oh, this must be a feature of the phone that it outlines the person." I said, "No,
Right.
no, it wasn't. No, no, no." It lasted for about 30, 40 seconds, and it disappeared.
Wow.
And he saw it, and he says, "What the heck was that?" He said, "That was like an aura all around her body." I said, "That's Terry's way of saying she's going to be here."
That's an aura. Absolutely.
I mean,
Positively.
it was the most beautiful, but
Wow.
it was a gift,
Yes.
and we
An
get them
absolute
all.
gift.
It was a wonderful gift.
Well, I have no doubt, and I don't understand, I don't even pretend to understand how things operate
Hmm.
in the afterlife. I'm sure you do more than I, but I've had two very gifted women mention two words to me over the past year, women who are very tuned in,
Hmm.
and they mention the words soul contract. And I'm wondering, do we have, based on your experience with Terry, do you think she had a soul contract before she came into her life? Because she seemed very confident and convicted that she was not going to grow old.
Hmm.
And I had a dear friend who told me when we were in our 30s that he was going to die when he was 57, and he would just laugh it off. As a matter of fact, as you and I are speaking right here, he wasn't, like you said, it wasn't depressing, it wasn't negative. He just stated, in fact, Glenn, I'm going to die when I'm 57. And a very gifted friend said, well, he had a soul contract coming into his life. Do you believe that? Is that what Terry possibly had? Do you know how that works?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, imagine that um, before you're born, you decide what you want to experience in your lifetime.
That's heavy.
It is heavy, but I mean, life isn't a random thing. I mean, it's
No.
such a gift, such a wonderful gift. And at before you're born, yes, if you want to call it a soul contract, it could be called that. You say, okay, what do I want to, because we all want to learn, we all want to grow, we all want to be closer to God, we want to realize who we are
Yes.
apart from God.
Self-actualization.
Yeah. So, and then there's God realization, but that's another story. But anyway, um, so you say, okay, what do I want to work on? What do I want to learn? How do I want to grow? Where do I want to live when I become a person? Do I want to live in Africa or England, wherever? Do I want to be Black, Chinese? What experience will get me the most knowledge?
Hmm.
And, what kind of parents do I want to experience what I want to experience? Everything, yeah, there's a lot of work to go into. It's not like whoopsie doo, here I am, and like no, it's quite a detailed choice, and we make it. So when you say soul contract, yes, Terry, that was Terry's choice.
Wow.
And I know it's like, and then at the same time, she kept saying, like your friend, nothing to it. Oh well, yeah, I'm not going to live. I'm not going to be 45 ever.
Wow.
Um, uh, and but on the same time, when you think of the man that killed her, murdered her, and murdered all the other women,
Okay.
same thing. Except I think we always have our choices. There's a track. There's a track that we choose to be on, but God's given us free will. We can
Correct.
choose differently. So um, Christopher Wilder, who murdered her and I think 10 other women,
Oh,
um, was he on that track when he first came into being? That I don't know, but I mean, he could have changed tracks, and that's what he ended up doing. But when Terry was first murdered, I hated him. I hated
of course. My
I
God.
hated him with every bone in my body.
Of course.
And now, though, I realize that if Terry came to experience this, to grow and to teach, and as a gift to me, she's taught me so much because she hooked me up with a spiritual master who has changed my whole life. And now I realize that the gift that life that it is and is wonderful. So I don't know whether I went off track.
No. That's incredible. There's so much there I want to talk about. So, wow. I mean, what you've just suggested is massive to
Mhm,
consider. So I want to talk Eric Clapton.
mhm.
His 4-year-old son Connor fell to his death at 4 years old, and I'll never forget when it happened. I'll never forget what Eric Clapton said. He said, "It's a pain you cannot anesthetize." So it's hard to imagine that Connor chose before coming into his life that was going to happen, or that Terry chose not to live a long, long life and grow old. But there's obviously a blessing in it for you. What is what is Terry in your mind? What is Terry's legacy, and what is the ultimate blessing that you've gotten from her death?
That's easy. The blessing I've received is just as I was saying, we make our own life happen. God's given us everything we need to have what we want. It's up to us. It's not like some people blame God for this or blame God for that. That's no. It's not God's fault. God is love,
Yes,
just love.
yes,
But we're here to learn that and to learn who we are. Love, love. We're all supposed to be, and we are love. But you gotta. It's kind of like the old thing about you take a hunk of clay and try to carve an elephant. You just take everything away that's not the elephant.
sure,
Well, if you do that with human beings, if you take everything away, you're gonna find love
right.
because that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to experience, and that's who we are. Um, but the little boy, um, I know it is. It's so difficult to wrap your head around it because we've all been told by our parents and the parents before them, and the knowledge is all the same, and we buy into it because that's, hey, mom said this and dad said this and my church says this, and you buy into it, but uh, something bigger than that to buy into. Um, that little boy um, did exactly what he came here to do, and it may have been a gift to Eric himself to learn something from it. With me, I know that God has given us, every single one of us, a power that we have not even tapped into.
Mm.
And it's all because we're loved so very, very much, so much. So I don't know whether that answers your question. Sometimes I get off track.
No, that's great. That's great. Just free flowing thought here. How have you, I mean, obviously you just stated that when you first found out about Terry, you hated Christopher with every fiber of your being, which is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Totally understandable. How have you healed from that over time? Have you had therapy? Has it been your Master Rose Ashley? And I want to talk about her. What advice can you give to, I mean, I remember my beloved dog Hilton died when I was in college and I was ripped to shreds.
Yeah.
And because they're part of our family. How do you heal from the death of a child? We're not supposed to outlive our children. What advice could you give, healing advice could you give to anybody who's watching this who may have lost a son or daughter?
Knowledge. Knowledge is the one thing. Master Rose, I have been gifted with studying, under her for over 30 years. And knowledge is the only way out. And it did help it, getting back to, even when your dog died. I mean, I've had 6 dogs and I'm on my 7th now, and I absolutely love them. They are family. I just,
Sure. Of course.
Well, I lost my track of thought again. I was somewhere and now I'm
Well,
not.
the knowledge, what knowledge,
The knowledge. The
what
knowledge
knowledge
is,
specifically have you gained that's helped you deal with the pain of losing Terry?
is that we all, and you could call it inventing, we all invent our own lives. That's our gift from God. We have to know how to do it. And of course, that's what the Master Rose taught me and others, how to use these tools to have what you want in your life. Anything you want in your life. I mean, that helped me. That helped me enormously when I finally understood that, oh my gosh, at some point in time, Terry chose this. It was something she chose. She chose it.
Yeah,
And
right.
yeah, so okay, so if she chose it, I chose it.
Wow.
I chose to be the mother of a murdered child.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Wow.
think about that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
My
I
head's
mean,
spinning inside.
yeah, it's I mean, this is, I've had years and years to let this sink in, but you have a knowing. You have a knowing after a while of what's real and what isn't, and
Right.
if you want something in your life and now you know how to go about getting it. I feel bad when I see people doing all these negative things and all these things that I'm thinking, oh my gosh, no, you're not going to ever get what you want. Like, oh, the perfect job or the perfect so and so.
Sure.
You got to know how to, you got
That's a
to,
myth.
yeah. It's like if you're going to plant a garden, you got to do the work, get the
You got to
soil.
pull the weeds.
Yeah, that's what I was doing all day yesterday.
Yeah.
But you got to do the work. And when you
Yeah.
have the work, do the work. And it's so rewarding, so rewarding. Yeah. And you know what? You're speaking of grieving people. I went to one thing that really helps a lot is get a journal and just start writing down your feelings.
Sure.
And when you're writing down your feelings and asking some questions, sometimes something else, I mean, write down a question just for the heck of it, and then ask for an answer. And you would be surprised to see you might just write it down. and you'll wonder where it came from.
That's great. Journaling is very, very powerful.
It is. It is. And the grief, I went to a grief after Terry was murdered, and you have to be very careful about that. It's not that it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, but there is a point in time where you have to heal. To me, Glenn, rehashing her murder, and I'm not talking about this. It's kind of like when a little kid falls down, they skin their knee and they get a scab on it, they keep picking at it. Um, you can't, well, you can keep going back there, but I choose not to because I know where she's at.
There you go. Yeah,
So, you know,
that's beautiful. As my dear friend Michael McKellar says, and he's been a guest on my show, sometimes you just have to get on with it.
yeah, yeah.
That's a decision.
It's a choice we have and we make.
You can stay stuck in the past and commiserate and choose to be a victim, or you can pick yourself up and focus on the present moment and know that there's a blessing and there's an advantage and there's opportunity in all of the adversity in life.
Even when you know, and as you say those words, um, you've got to believe that and
Yeah.
look for it. Because if you
Yeah.
look for it, you're going to find it.
Oh yeah,
You know?
that's right.
Yeah. So
That's right. Yeah, I made a little quick Facebook video over the weekend, and I referenced one of my favorite all-time books, the first book that I ever read twice as an adult by the late great Wayne Dyer.
oh yeah, love him.
I'm sure you do. He's awesome. I can't believe he's out there with Terry right now, but
Right. Yeah.
he wrote a book called "You'll See It When You Believe It."
Uh-huh.
You'll see it when you believe it. Most of us look at life the other way around. Yeah,
Right.
bullshit. I'll believe that when I see it.
Yep. And
You know?
and they won't.
Nope.
You know.
Nope.
Yeah. So
You got to believe it. You got to believe it to manifest it.
right. And you can manifest anything. Anything.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is the name of your book, Fran?
It's I named the title after the last note she wrote me because Terry and I used to always write notes. You know, she was 21. She was in and out of the house. You know, bing, 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 bing. You know, I'm going out dancing. Blah, 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 blah. And she'd leave me notes. And the night before she was murdered, she left me a note, and she used to leave some funny notes. She was very funny. Um, one of the notes that just popped into my head was, um, she said, "Mom, um, I'll be home after all the liquor and drugs are used up or something." And she was not into any of that because it was just one of those funny things that
Right.
crazy notes, and I leave crazy notes back to her. But her last note to me was, "Wake me up at 10. Love, Terry." And actually, that's the book.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was it say wake me up at 10?
Yeah, "Wake me up at 10," and then she sounded "Love, Terry." So but back to the journaling, Glenn, if you journal, like I journaled and it ended up in a book,
That's great.
but it could be with anybody because you see yourself grow as you write in your journal and you
Yes.
look back and say, "Oh, I was going through this then, but look at me now."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. So
So anybody who's interested in journaling, do you physically journal with a pen and paper, or do you have an app or a software program you use? How do you journal?
it's very important to use your own handwriting.
Well, I agree with that 100%.
It's your own energy, it's your own emotions, your own love that's going into well, that pen is in your hand and you're writing. Yeah. I would never. No.
Okay. Well, I agree. I'm very kinesthetic. I love to write with my own hand. So I appreciate that. When did you start journaling, and how many years of your journal are compiled into your book?
Um I started journaling probably when I was studying under Master Rose because she taught us different things about journaling. Uh, but it's not so much as the like page by page goes into the book. It's just um, it just when I went to write the book, I realized that I had written everything down in my journal, and so I could look back at that at dates and like
Yes.
when this happened, when that happened. So and yeah, and as a matter of fact, with her boyfriend coming up next month, I starting to write to him, and I'm thinking, you know what, this could be the start of another book.
Hmm.
Just his trip up here because I'm
Sure.
I'm anxious to see how Terry's gonna let us know she's here.
Yeah. As soon as that becomes apparent to you, please share it with me
I will.
because that fascinates me.
Yeah, it fascinates me too. But and I remember when I lived in Florida, I was a golfer, and one of the starters of the golf course. She and her husband golf with my husband and myself, and he passed away. And a few years later, she called me and said, "Fran," she said, I got something to tell you." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, her husband's name was Bernie," and she said, "I had Bernie's sister down to visit, and she said, we're sitting in the living room and we're watching television." And she said, all of a sudden, she said, Bernie materialized in front of her television set. She said he was in his pajamas. And she said, I looked over to see what sister was thinking, and she was asleep. And she said, oh, thank. And he just
Oh,
appeared. Oh gosh, I don't know. But of course, my hope is like, wouldn't it be neat if she like materialized just for like
oh, be
like five
stunning.
seconds,
Be stunning.
All
2
right,
seconds.
yeah, 2 seconds. Can I hold her and hug her real quick? you know.
Oh, of course. I get it. I get it.
Um,
Well, a couple things I'm extremely curious about. First of all, what is Master Rose the master of?
she's a spiritual master of this
Okay.
everything spiritual. I mean, you could look up spiritual master and see. I mean, I can't even go into all the things that there's very few God realized spiritual masters.
Hmm. Okay.
She
Well,
could
that
tell she can tell me who I was in another lifetime and who I was before that and before that and before that.
okay. She's got that gift.
She is gifted. She was born gifted, and she's sharing the gift with us.
Got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we know a couple gifted women like that. I understand completely. Have you ever read, and if you haven't, it's fascinating. I bet Master Rose has, Many Lives, Many Masters.
I have that book right now in my closet.
How about that?
I have
Is that
read them all, Glenn. I'm pretty close to it. I
is
got them.
that unbelievable?
Oh yeah, it
And
is.
that was written by a brilliant doctor, brilliant psychologist about
Mhm.
past lives. Anyway, that's a whole nother that could be a whole nother podcast
Oh
right
yeah,
there.
but yeah, yeah. But it's fun to open up people's minds. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of wisdom out there. However you label it, lots of wisdom. But I think you've nailed it by saying God is love.
that's it.
God is love. And I've watched, you know, I have, and I'm staring right now. I'm staring stage 4 cancer directly in the eyes.
Hmm.
Um, and I've chosen not to freak out because I know that it's just part of my process and my story and my legacy, and healing naturally from it is a huge part of my faith and belief.
Hmm.
Um, but there's lots of wisdom out there, regardless of what you call it. I don't care if you're a devout atheist or a devout Christian. I mean, we all come from the same source.
We do. It's God.
And I've watched a lot of. I got pretty fascinated with all the near death experience videos on YouTube, and they all pretty much say the same thing. What they experience during that time is just this overwhelming feeling of love and peace and understanding and the light, and it's emotions and feelings that our feeble human brains can't even verbalize, or it's hard to conceptualize. So that whole subject just fascinates me.
Me too.
So you've taught classes. Are you still teaching classes, night classes on what
No, I'm not.
life
No,
after death? Is that in your past history?
that's my that's my past history. But now I'm doing spiritual classes,
Okay.
just going over all I've learned from the death of my daughter.
Well,
And I mean, like I said, um, that was her gift to me.
yeah. Yeah. Incredible. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll continue to learn. Have you learned it all yet? Or do you continue to learn lessons from Terry? And will you always learn and share lessons from Terry?
I I'm always learning and I'm always looking for answers. Always. Everything everything fascinates me. If I don't know the answer to something, I've got to find it out. But no, I'm always learning. I always want to learn. Um, and what I learn, I want to pass on.
Yeah.
So
Oh, God bless you.
and you too.
Yeah, I saw a crazy video yesterday. Maybe I was supposed to see it before this show. It was this guy who lost his brother Val, and this guy's sitting here talking. They're just out in the woods or yard somewhere, and I guess his buddy's filming him on his phone, and he's all excited and amped up and passionate. And he said, "This is happening right now. As I was just speaking about my past brother Val, this dragonfly was doing circles." I'm getting goosebumps right now. This dragonfly was doing circles right in front of his face and landed on this branch. And he reached up and put his hand up to the dragonfly, and the dragonfly
Oh,
hopped onto his finger. As they were talking about his past dearly departed brother Val, I don't know if like red cardinals, I think, have some spiritual meaning. I don't know if dragonflies do, but I share that because, like you, I think we receive signs
yes.
from people who have passed that, hell, we can't explain, can't even begin to explain. But I've heard there are 8 or 10 other dimensions out there. We live in this little bitty
Hmm.
3D world. What
Right.
if there are 10 dimensions out there? We couldn't even begin to fathom what that's like.
No, it's such a yeah, it's such such a mystery. But that little dragonfly was his brother. That was his brother's way of saying, "Hey," And I mean, but that's another way that they're always sending you little messages. And
Yeah.
when you're talking about dimensions, and you're thinking, I don't know about you, I used to always be fascinated with Sasquatch and the Yeti and the abdominal snowman and all that stuff. And the reason they can't ever find them is because they're in another dimension. They pop into
Oh,
this one, they do what they're going to do, and then they go and they can. I don't know. We can never find them,
yeah.
because they're not here.
Wow.
It's a fascinating life, isn't it?
It is. No, it truly is. It truly, truly is. And um, hey, this is what we're here to talk about. I mean, my life was spared for a reason. Terry gave her life for a reason, and that's brought you and I together to have this conversation. And I truly hope that people who watch this podcast will learn something from you and from your experience and from the, seemingly unfathomable pain of losing a child. The fact that you have kept your wits together physically and emotionally, and maybe you had in the past, but here you are today, and you have chosen to find the blessing in all this. I commend you, friend. I think you're a champion, and love what you're doing for humanity.
Oh, thank you so much, Glenn.
So what would you like to close with? Anything that I should have asked you that I did not ask you, or anything else you'd like to share in closing? How can people reach you? What is put a bow on top of finding the blessing in adversity?
Put a bow on it.
Yeah, and maybe you have, but Any closing thoughts from you?
Adversity is just an opportunity for the greatest gift that you would not have ever received had you not had that adversary.
Wow. Wow. That's a
So
that's an incredibly mature way to look at adversity.
yeah, it's a gift. And I mean
Yeah.
it's hard when it first hits you, but there's a gift and you're not going to get to the gift sometimes without it.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but they can reach me through my email,
Okay. And what is your email?
fran.ferguson@icloud.com.
Fran.ferguson@icloud.com.
Yep, that's me.
Wonderful. And your book is Wake Me Up at 10,
Yep, love
Love
Terry.
Terry,
Mm-hmm.
and that's available on Amazon.
Amazon. Uh-huh.
When did that come out, Fran? When was that?
Um,
When was the copyright date?
last September 22nd, I think.
Oh, congratulations.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what my neighbor told me when I handed him my first book. He said, "Congratulations, you're now immortal."
But we're immortal anyway
Yeah, that's
because we
great.
live on and on and on.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Fran, this has been a fantastic conversation. It's lovely to meet you. Maybe, do you ever get down to the South?
Don't get too far anywhere, no anymore. No. But if I ever did, I'll pop in on you.
Well, if you ever come down south to see our mutual friend, the other Fran,
Man.
would love to meet you in person. And thank you for being so kind with your time and being transparent and vulnerable. And I greatly appreciate you and your story.
Well, thank you. And so much. I really appreciate being on this podcast. And I will recommend to my friends to, you know, check you out because
Well,
you're
thank
you're
you.
you're an upper.
Thank you. Hey, upper's better than a downer all day, 8 days a week.
Right, right.
All right, friends. Well, that's a wrap on another incredible interview conversation. Wow. How some people find the blessing in adversity just absolutely inspires me. So, coming to you from North Atlanta Studios, Mesmerize Media. Hey, if this content resonates with you, I would be honored if you would like it, if you would share it, if you would subscribe. Helps us fund this channel. And you have a phenomenal day, and always seek out the advantage in adversity.